had no directions.
Now they'll be like, I happen to take it and give an electrician. Back then, the guys would just be, I'm here, I'll just fix it for you. For the little lady.
Yes,
So we have 1 minute.
One of the ones too, the
yes.
okay.
It was supposed to be, yes.
Okay.
But that's what the whole,
We've got a busy agenda here.
Yeah.
and they don't,
No, we don't.
so.
Okay, let's see. On the, it's a contest. Can you get done in 1 hour?
That's all our meetings are, is 1 hour. It's at 2, at 2. 2 o'clock. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Community Development, Economic Development, Park and Recreation Committee meeting. If Stacy could do the roll call
Mrs. DiGiacomo,
here.
Mrs. Mills,
Here.
Ms. Holman, Mr. Timonier.
Here.
And then we have guest. We have Mr. Roskovich that's here, Mary Church and Catherine Colgren. And I'm going to let our guest take it away.
Yeah, go.
So Mrs. Colgan and I are here to present some changes to a few of the codified ordinances that we have. The first one we will talk about is 2024 temporary stores and food truck ordinance. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look that over.
Yes.
Mrs. Colgan put this together for us to review. I know we've talked about food truck legislation for a number of years now. So I think this is a great starting point to reignite that conversation because we do have a lot more food trucks coming to town, and even people calling the office inquiring about where they could set up a food truck. So if anybody has any questions or comments.
And the
Can
blue-
I ask, oh,
The blue is all the changes, right?
Yes, sir.
Catherine, all the blue
Yes,
is
sir.
the changes.
So the temporary stores section, or chapter 759, is the existing codified ordinance.
Okay.
And so I figured food trucks with temporary stores kind of made sense, you know. So all the blue stuff is not necessarily proposed or suggested, but it's stuff that I was able to cobble together from a couple other municipalities. Things that might work here, things that the city manager may have mentioned in passing. There's some that need still flushing out. For example, days and hours of operation, location requirements, any restrictions on food truck operations. I know we had specifically addressed the issue several months ago with a food truck that was located in a residential area that was causing some concern with the neighbors. So those kinds of things need flushed out by the committee, what they want to see or not see happen.
can I ask is that okay?
I
When
just
I
think-
was reading this, would it be that, I saw like would it be a permit each time, and then, it almost looked like if things are clean and tidy, then does some part come back, or is it like just a held thing?
I did put in a deposit for cleaning. That was just one thing that we saw.
Okay.
But I believe in there's also language that the city manager can waive fees. I know there was specific for, I believe in the temporary store section for nonprofits, that kind of thing. So a similar approach to food trucks, I think, would be appropriate. But those, like I said, I had no legislative direction, so I just threw darts at a dartboard.
If I ask Mr. Manager for, when you were having an event, it could be an open parcel of land or whatever, would you like that different than a private property? Or like right now, I don't know if when you drive by an area, are you privy, like ahead of time, do people notify the city and say, hey, I'm doing my food truck this day, or?
Yeah, right now, most of the food trucks that show up are on private property, and we don't necessarily need notification of that, as long as
Okay.
they're invited by the property owner to do
Okay.
it. You know, obviously, we've talked about this, Cloven Hoof in the harbor does a great job programming their food trucks all year long. They, you know, because it's on private property, we don't, you know, we don't intervene in that, I guess you'd say. I think what this would do would be to cover more of public property, or if somebody wanted just to set up in one of the public lots. The other thing that probably would not fly, I don't think, with the food trucks would be the $250 fee for a 30-day period. So there's some things in here that, you know, we're going to need some council direction on of how you guys how you want to proceed with this. So just for way of history, the temporary stores legislation, this came about a long time ago. I think I was just starting at the chamber when this was being proposed. And it was because these kind of little side of the road shops were setting up with flowers and with different things, and they were in the same districts as some of our flower shops, and it was taking away from the brick and mortar. And so I believe it was both I would think it was the harbor merchants at that time and the downtown merchants came to council and were a little bit, you know, wanted some teeth behind this, that if these places were going to set up and they didn't pay property tax or income tax and all that stuff, how could the city kind of regulate it and then, you know, see something from it like the other businesses were paying. And so that's how the temporary stores legislation was born. Flash forward to today, those kind of pop-up things are different. You know, they actually attract more people to the brick and mortar than they used to. The brick and mortars are more willing to have food trucks and different things like that. Now, obviously, some of the restaurants in those areas don't get, you know, they're not thrilled about it, but they also draw more people down. They might go in for a drink, for an adult beverage, after visiting one of the food trucks. But it's a different, people are looking for those types of things now. And you, as we've discussed, food truck parks have popped up all over Northeast Ohio. So, you know, one of the things that we contemplated a while back was, you know, at Smithfield, it's kind of away from all of our business districts, but on typically Mondays and Tuesdays, we see a lot of the restaurants closed. Could we have food truck day in Smithfield? And then that's where some of this legislation would come into play, because it would be on public property. So just kind of give you an idea. If somebody called and said, hey, I want to set up on the corner of Bridge Street, you know, we don't have any real legislation besides the temporary stores permit to kind of regulate that. So, and again, food truck is a little bit different than a temporary store. And as the assistant solicitor mentioned, there is a provision in here that if it's a nonprofit, we're able to waive fees. So you see that, I think probably the most notable would be the Lions Club when they do carnations down at Kevin Cornelius Park on Swedish Day, I think it is. One of those days they do, they sell flowers over there. That's probably the most notable one that people would recognize.
So I have a question. So like the Pocket Park, that would be not a public place, so they can do whatever they want.
I mean, it's private property, but I think there are also, I saw some of the language in here though that regulated how close that could be to other restaurants and different things like that. So again, that these are things that we're gonna need some input on.
So what did it say? Help me
Thought it was-
remember.
Like 100 feet or something.
Page 5 and 9, that's where my question is.
Yeah, so 75909, 10, and 11.
Yeah, they seem to be contradictory, don't they?
Well, they're intended to be flushed out. So I need some idea, do you want to allow food trucks in residential neighborhoods? If you do, what limitations do you want to put on them, if any? Do you want to allow food trucks in only commercial neighborhoods? These are just ideas because I haven't received any.
I'm not a fan of putting a food truck in a residential neighborhood. I mean, if, say I was gonna have a party and I wanted to have a food truck in that way, so if you say you can't set up shop in a residential neighborhood, does that give that leeway for a party?
Well, you have to keep in mind that your regulations can differ by district. So if you want to allow for a residential food truck between certain hours with a permit issued by the city manager, you can do that. You can make it a blanket, you know, they're allowed between 9 and 5, and then after hours, you know, after 5 p.m. they have to have a permit. However you want to craft it, so that it works for your particular districts.
So I guess one example of regulating that, the garage sale permit that we do, is it, what, 2 times a year?
I think so.
A property? So, you know, you could do something like that where if, I'm kinda, I know where you're kinda going with this. Again, if it's somebody having a private party and they want a food truck on the property, I don't see an issue with that. But how do we make sure that maybe it's not parked on the street, or it has to be on their property, and it can't be for, you know, a week, or, you know,
Well,
how
yeah,
does that?
it would be
Yeah.
the time limitations.
Right,
And,
right.
and some properties, it would have to be parked on the street, to be honest.
Mine, that's what I was just gonna say. If I wanted to rent a truck for my house, I'd have to have them park on the street on the harbor. I mean, obviously you do it on a less busy street, but still.
I guess I don't have any problem with people having parties and using a food truck, but if a food truck is permanently setting up in a residential neighborhood, I think that's when you would get complaints from neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's, I guess, we don't want to see, or personally, I don't want, and if you guys differ, that's fine, but I wouldn't want to see a food truck person just have this thing then parked in their front yard and open for business when it's not deployed at an event.
Right.
Or where they're asked to be, because that just, I mean, it's gonna create traffic
yeah.
and all different
Well,
things.
I think that's the issue in a residential would be that's why you live in a residential and not a commercial area.
So the other thing to keep in mind too, because of our wonderful zoning, and I'll use that loosely, there's a lot of residential property that's in commercial district.
Correct.
So if you think of Route 20, it's a commercial corridor, however, there's residential houses on it. So if you say it's only allowed in a commercial corridor, you know, so there's different
I
things
would
that.
think if you are living in a commercial corridor, you're already accustomed to traffic for commercial businesses.
Well, what I'm saying is, it might be a food truck owner might live on a commercial district and then think that they can just put it in their front yard and.
I see what you're saying. It all
So
gets
I guess
complicated.
exactly, so it has to kind of get drilled down a little bit into the use of the property at that point. But, you know, here again, I personally, if it's a private business, you know, obviously they still have to go through the health department and the state to have
Right.
their certifications.
Correct.
And the truck itself needs to pass our fire inspection and all that stuff, which I think goes along with the health permit. I would rather not see them just open for business in a residential area at any time. If they're invited by a property owner, I think that's fine. And even in the commercial districts, I think that's fine if they're invited by a property owner. I think council needs to consider some of the instances where it would be next to a other restaurant or person that's selling food. Just in the way of competition there, I just need to take a look at that.
And
And then I think
if I
that,
might, there was, and I believe it was from Cleveland's, I put it in 705909B. which would allow food trucks on property owned or leased by the food truck operator, so long as it's a location of an affiliated restaurant. So that would give you, you know, that harbor type situation where, what's the name of the place? Cloven Hoof, you know, something like that. But they wouldn't be able to take it and park it next to their competitor's restaurant.
So what about West Street and Benefit Avenue? That started out, and now it's permanent, and now I see on the computer they're adding breakfast. You can buy breakfast there, this and that, so I'm thinking, it's like, you know, it's like an all-day kind of thing. It's
And
getting
that's,
to be.
you know, we've had mixed reactions to that, so that's kind of what has prompted us to push you guys a little bit further with this legislation to get something. If you're fine with it, great. If not,
Well, it's a sticky wick.
On West Street and Benefit Avenue.
And I leave those sandwiches, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Something
those
like
things.
that.
Yeah,
they
it's
basically
a
took
wagon.
an empty lot next to their parcel and have parked the food truck on it. They put all stone down, made
Yeah,
a little drive in and drive out, and when the food truck is not deployed, it's there and open.
yeah.
Okay, I understand, okay.
Pizza food truck, is that in a commercial corridor? It's like where the
I-
Pasco
yeah,
Pod race
yeah,
is on,
Yep, I
there's
do.
a Station there,
Yes.
that's residential considered.
It's on West. It's,
I think are we talking about the same place?
could be.
No, it's like a pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, pizza, yeah. But now they're advertising,
I think it is the same spot.
yeah, same spot, they're advertising tacos for breakfast, or
Almost
something.
like a mobile homes park there.
Yeah,
So let me, I know you want us to say, we want this or we want that. I do want to make a comment. I understand how the brick and mortars feel, because I've had people reach out to me. They feel very strongly that they're paying rents, they're competing against someone who is not. At the same time, I think to get an area up and running, a food truck park is a huge draw. So the business owner in me thinks, I think this is going to bring more people than prevent people.
So, and not to interrupt you, but some of the things that we have talked about internally, especially with the one that's being proposed down here on Main Avenue, this is a perfect opportunity also for us to, and we plan on doing this over the wintertime here, but we're really looking into the Dora, not only for
Right.
Bridge Street, but for Main Avenue. Now, the reason we talk about it now for Main Avenue is that does open, you know, from what we understand, that park will not, and I don't think it could qualify for any type of liquor permit. However, they could walk across the street to Dublin Down, or even next door to Shenanigans, grab a beer while they're playing on the golf simulator or pickleball or whatever, go sit in the park, have a lunch, but, you know, so it still kind of spreads the wealth around as far as what they could do. So it's something that we've talked about in conjunction with the grant and everything for Main Avenue, trying to get that.
I
up
think
and running.
that has huge possibilities. I think if you had food trucks in that pocket park, that they will come. People will come. And that, I think, could be a huge economic driver for local business downtown.
Everybody has to
I think in
eat. I mean, it's a,
I think in the preliminary plans that we saw that, I mean, you know, they're only talking, I think, 2 or 3 food trucks in that
It
park.
was
so-
2 in
Was it 2 in the presentation?
yeah.
So you know, which is good, you know, but it's not gonna be like 5 trucks in the park, you know, all at once.
No, 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 no.
And they
Right.
wanted to program it, so it wouldn't
Right.
be every day, it would just be, you know, when certain
Right.
events are going on, so.
No, I think
I
that
think-
will
I think you're right. I
drive
think it's a
people
draw.
down to Main Avenue 100%, which is a win-win for everyone. So can we go back to fees? And you're going to have to help me recall here. So a long time ago, when we first started this conversation, I believe we contacted our neighbors in Conneaut and Geneva, and there was an annual fee at both of those places, and I want to say it was like $50, but my memory, who knows?
I don't recall what that was. I think, I know the hard part for me was, and this again is something that needs to be vetted out as you guys are assembling this ordinance. Is it to operate a food truck anywhere within the city, even on those private properties? Is the fee just for if they're gonna be on public property? Those are all,
So my understanding at the time was that it was anywhere within the city.
Okay.
But that was a few years ago, so I can't. But I think that as a city, we are also in competition with our neighboring cities. And if we want food trucks here, which I think brings people here, I think the answer is yes, we have to look at our competition to the east and west of us.
I think if you're talking about if you're talking about a fee to operate within the city, whether it's on private or public property, number one, I think we have to have public property established that they can use it on, and when those hours of operation would be. And then I would urge more of an annual fee rather than a monthly fee.
Yeah, I would say annual.
Can I ask, so, say it was $50, how cumbersome is it? Who would be taking those fees and keeping track of those fees and then making sure that, you know what I mean? Because there's that part that goes with it.
Yeah, so my guess it would be just like a permit we do now for uses of our properties. I really don't want to get bogged down with every time anyone has an event, having the food truck, or having, Mrs. Smith say, I'm having a 6-year-old birthday party and Kona Ice is showing up for this. I don't think it's relevant to us. Now, if somebody were to complain and we had to go visit, as long as they had the annual permit or on them or a sticker or whatever we end up coming up with to signify they have the permit, to show them and validate it, I think is fine. But I think if it's on public property, that food truck would have to either apply for it or we have something established where it's an every Monday thing or whatever that case may be.
So let me ask a question. So it's also in my mind that many years ago when this conversation began, we thought the number of 250 annually was the right number. I can't.
I don't remember, yeah.
See, I can just make stuff up and.
And I mean, so I guess when you look at some of the other things that people try to do with temporary stores type stuff,
Location.
I like the $250 a month only because it prevents some of that stuff from popping up. On the food truck end, it's a different. I mean, I think, like you said, I think of the food truck things are drivers and we can get more people in different areas with that. But, when people show up to sell light gadgets or flags or all the other tchotchke things you see some along the freeway, that's not stuff I want to see positioned throughout the city in different spots personally. So I think that 250 deters that. But on the food truck end, like I said, I 250 I don't think would attract any food trucks here.
Per month, but
Per
not
month.
annually.
Yeah, that's a.
Well,
What's the disadvantage to not having a permitting, just letting private business do what they want? Like, what will be the disadvantage to that?
That's what I'm saying is if it's like Cloven Hoof and they're having food trucks, I don't really need to.
Repercussions or anything like that, couldn't you just go after the business per se? I mean, in relation to like cleanliness or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, when it's on their own property, that's on them to clean up and do everything. But like I said, the permitting more would be for public, in my opinion, would be more for public property.
Was there something in there which I sort of like, so say it's on their private property, but say there's a city sidewalk or whatever, that they have to have it so where they're taking the order, so they're not by the road or wasn't there something like that in there? That it's like a safety thing?
I put it in 75911. and that goes, it goes so far as to, can they park on the street? I think, you've hit on some of the different designations. The commercial corridor, they can't park on Route 20. So, we have to get down to those details as to, where they're able to put the vehicle, which way they have to face. Some of the other places, they had temporary seating. Are they allowed to throw lawn chairs out for people to sit in? If they are, where do those have to be located? I mean, there's a lot of minutia
It's
that goes with it.
complicated.
Mhm.
So legally though, is if it's on their private property, but say there's the right of way, the road, the city sidewalk, we could put something in there that for health and safety, maybe the way that it has to be, and you couldn't block a walkway for, people and stuff. So that might be a good thing if, it's a business that you just wanted to make sure you have other people that are walking through that, not say that it's gonna happen, but you never know. You could have a new business and that happens and they go, oh my gosh, it's so congested, nobody can even walk down the street.
Right.
So maybe just that part of it, I liked that when I, was reading through this. Any thoughts on that one?
No, I agree with
You
you.
like that
Total
one?
agreement.
For safety?
Yes.
So I know there's still kind of a lot of, I think we, again, would like some feedback on what has now been drafted from you all. Send it our way, and then I think once we polish this up a little bit more, it might be time to talk to the Ashtabula Food Truck Network, kind of get their opinion, and maybe even some more cleanup of the language, and then let's try to get it passed.
So let me ask you this. We do not have a meeting in January, but I'm willing to have a meeting in January if, of course, it can't be on January 1st, but if you want to have the food truck,
I think we need feedback from you guys. I would rather have, here's where we're at to present to them, rather than we're still in the midst of it, and then have, have them put their input in on it, and then kind of come to a compromise at the end. So I think maybe we take from this point to your next meeting in February, try to get all the information back from you guys.
okay,
Digest
sounds
it into
fair.
the ordinance, and then, and maybe that's just Mary and I can call them in and sit with them, give it to them, show them it, get some feedback, invite them to the next meeting, but then they could have something before just showing it to them at the meeting.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Does anyone have anything else they want to add to the food truck discussion?
Can I ask for the legal wise, just so that nobody's wasting their time and then, well, we can't do that. So legally, if there is a fee or not a fee, but just an application that this is 2025 and we're gonna fill this out, we have XYZ food truck and blah, blah, blah. Are we as a city then allowed to, I don't know, if places make, like there's a little sticker, so at least if Mr. Manager's going there and he looks and he sees, okay, yeah, they're good for the year 2025, or the health department, they've at least that part of it check, the city knows. and
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So,
Okay.
somewhere in here, just like temporary stores, it would be, posting of the permit, as part of what I propose, for the application for the permit, that they have to submit a copy of their food service license, their fire approvals, all of those things, so that we have a record of it. And just like with their health department permit, they have to post it on their truck, we would have a requirement that they would have to post our approval.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Do we have do we have an actual application currently?
No, but we can borrow one from somebody. Those
Okay.
are
And
easy.
again, I don't,
I was like,
I
do
don't-
we have to make that?
yeah, and I don't think it needs to get difficult. We could probably even just use the permit that we use now for events.
Okay.
There's a section for other, we might just be able to modify it a little bit. We just really need to know hours and where they're going. We don't need much more than that.
And that would include private events as well.
I don't really think we need to get down that rabbit hole, because you're just, I mean, there's gonna be a lot.
So with a private event, there still needs to be approval through the city health department. Am I
Correct, so we can make
Yeah.
it that the city health department cannot approve their health permit until they pay the annual fee or something, because the only reason they would go through the health department is if they were having something in town.
And I think most vendors, I remember this from the festival, they get an Ohio license.
There is an Ohio license, yes. Mhm. But our health department still does need to inspect them.
Right,
when they're
right,
in
right,
town,
right, right.
yes. Mhm.
And, you know, there's a possibility to consider the option that you don't necessarily have to have a permit for every food truck, but you have a registration list. So to operate within the city of Ashtabula, you have to register your food truck operation with a contact number. I mean, worst case scenario, my job is to anticipate worst case scenario. So worst case scenario, food truck goes into a residential neighborhood and trashes the place. Who do we go after?
Right, oh, that's a very valid point.
Person who invited them? That might not be the best, you know, legal
Right.
approach. So if we have a list, we have a contact person just with vacant building registration, we know who is responsible.
I
Right,
kind of like the fee for registration thought better than each event. So then, you know, once a year, they would come in, register their food truck, be able to operate within the city. And then if there's times where we as a municipality are gonna allow things on public property, we would put something out to that list and say, hey, first 10 people to respond, show up at Smithfield on XYZ date and you can have food truck day, or Caden Park or wherever. I think that would be easier to manage, would just be a registry more than each event.
so do you want, Stacy, our new clerk, to reach out to the cities around us for what their fees are, or?
They're probably, we can look them up online, but I wouldn't get too bogged down in the fees. I think if
Okay.
we stuck to an annual fee, and more of a registry than anything else, I think we can figure out the rest of it.
So let me ask, for hours of operation, and this might vary between residential and other, so, because I know some of them will do breakfast, but then you're thinking if someone's doing an event in a neighborhood or something like that, you might want your hours to be maybe a little bit different, and I know there's whatever curfew times, or, you know, because sometimes somebody
Well,
may
I think-
have a birthday party that's running late, or.
Yeah, so I think that's all things that we can try to determine, but, you know, the private parties on private property, I think if you just do, you know, the hours total that they're allowed to do it, but remember too, that if it's a food truck for a private event on private property, you're not gonna have people just driving up
Right,
and,
Right.
you know,
right.
shopping at it, so I don't know about limiting, but you can throw whatever you want at it,
Okay,
it's your ordinance.
And I would throw in another thing to consider. You've considered private property, you've considered public property. Consider the food truck that just shows up and starts to operate.
So that would be like the former Mead's popcorn stand. How would you regulate that? Remember how he used to, I think he used to set up besides the old.
right. But I
Start now.
remember the merchants came to council to allow that to happen. I mean,
Right,
this is
but as
going
far
way
as
back.
Yeah.
allowing it, I'm just saying as far as regulating it.
How do
So
we-
hours, location, rules of operation, those, if you want to allow food trucks to stop, you know, randomly in residential neighborhoods without invitation, what are you going to regulate them? How are you going to regulate them?
Because right now, if somebody did that, I'm thinking in my mind that's illegal, but it's not
It isn't.
unless it's on paper.
Yeah, so the only enforcement action we have right now really are public nuisance, parking, traffic violations. But like, we had the food truck that, you know, they threw down some gravel and they've got a lot, and now they have a food truck, and there's no regulation that governs it.
So what do you recommend for that, Catherine?
Well, I don't recommend. That's a legislative decision.
The ones that are just popping up, or that call and say, hey, I'd like to set up on the corner of Bridge Street and Goodwill or the corner of 44th and Main. I think that would be a administrative decision of how we allow that, and there needs to be some language again for public property and how we do that.
Could it be worded that if it just pops up, maybe if they didn't know, but then they're notified and then they have to go through that process? Then if it happened a second time, it could be then a violation starts, or I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out, but because it sounds like if not, this isn't going away, there's gonna be more.
Yeah, there
of
definitely
these.
needs to be, so the first focus needs to be on what the rules and regulations are gonna be. And then you need to follow up with, okay, it's the carrot and the stick. So what's gonna be the stick? What are you threatening them with if they don't comply with the rules you come up with?
Well, I always feel like money is a huge motivator for people, if charging people money.
It is for
usually-
me.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody to misconstrue. It's not like we have this huge rash of food trucks just popping up that we don't know about. We don't. Most of the people that are in this business want to do it the right way and are asking us a lot of questions. How do we do it? And we're just telling them right now, we don't have a way for you to do it, except we're kind of staying away from when you're invited on private property. So find someone to invite you to set up. It's kind of how we're dealing with it now.
Which is unfortunate for us as a city, because I feel like we're,
We're pushing you
Make it
along here to
right
get
for
the
ones that
get
are
the
doing
ordinance
it
done.
right. Yeah.
Jim,
So-
you should have leeway too, because you do now in regards to like when we do my thing and it works out well.
Yeah, and if something's coming in that's going to be not harmonious to the area or something like that, yes, we should have that discretion to say yes or no on that.
so what I hear, I just want to review. We agree an annual fee. We agree on a registry. For the random person that just pops up with a food truck operating wherever, not on private property, we agree there should be a fine. And I would do, for me, I would do a first offense fine, a second, and it just escalates. I really do find that helps with behavior. And what were the other points we hit?
Proximity to restaurants,
Yeah, I think a lot of those, again, we'd like you to tell us your thoughts and we can put them all.
Yeah, so if, for me, the easiest way is if you go through this and take your red pen and cross things out, say no way, and make, additions and suggestions and whatever, and then I can cross-check them with case law and make sure we're not suggesting anything that's, patently illegal, then we can have something for February that's a little more cohesive.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you for doing all that work on this.
So,
The snowstorm was good for something.
yeah.
Moving along?
Is that all you have?
No.
Keep going.
Just one thing.
That was one.
Yeah, so chapter 749 in two different sections. In section 749.09 and 749.13, there is mention to appeal to the Boarding of Zoning Appeals, and we do not have such board. So we're recommending either the administrative board or the planning commission.
What's the administrative board?
The administrative board right now hears variance requests as it relates to setbacks and things like that. The planning commission, they only hear very specific variance requests thinking.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the way it's currently written, the way the codified ordinances are currently written, the administrative board is the board that this would go to. But we think that probably because the nature of the chapter, it's what gun ranges and
Yes.
something, that it's probably more appropriate for the planning commission to hear. So we would have to change these two sections as well as empower the planning commission to hear these appeals in a separate section, which we'll get to under the planning commission section later.
I'm fine with that change. Do you need a vote or a motion on that here?
Well, we can draft it and make sure all the sections are covered and presented at the next committee meeting if that works.
Yeah, yes.
Just so you know, this is not something that's ever happened. You've been in your position for how long?
19 years.
19 years, and it's never happened. But it's something that needs to be corrected.
Okay.
The last section is specific to the planning commission, 165.05. It says that the planning commission shall hold meetings regularly, at least once in every month. And I would like that changed because occasionally we do not meet. What else, Catherine?
It says that the commission shall adopt its own rules of procedure. They haven't adopted rules of procedure, so that's just something that they need to address. But in conjunction with that, 165.08. This is a section that City Council struggled with regard to the appeal from the Historic Commission or Historic Preservation, whatever that title is. Right now, that section says that every decision of the Planning Commission is to be approved by City Council. And it has that weird voting requirement where so many votes are to affirm or modify, so many votes are needed to reverse. We would like the committee to consider that, and I have been unable to find any historic indication of why it was created that way. But that's where we are. One member of the Planning Commission is asking about it because it says every decision of the Planning Commission is supposed to be approved or not by City Council. If City Council wants to continue with that, then Planning Commission needs to start doing it. Otherwise, we need to change the legislation to reflect how we want it to operate.
So
Is that one?
No, it's not included.
Okay.
It's 165.08.
Okay.
That would be quite cumbersome, don't you think?
I
'Cause
think so.
There are some months the planning commission may approve 4 or 5 things. Some months none, but some months, and the council would have to approve all of them. I think that would be cumbersome.
And I think that gets into, the business-friendly timing of things. You don't want to go 2, 3, by the time they apply, it could be, they might have just caught us after a meeting, it could be a month, and then by the time it gets to council and the ordinances and everything, it could be another month to 2 months, depending on our schedule. So I think that makes it extremely cumbersome to do that.
I'm fine with how we have operated, so if you need to change the language to how we actually operate, I'm fine with that.
Is there any, because you all have been around longer than I have, is there any recollection of why that may have been done that way? Or can you think of any reason why City Council would want to approve? Are there any decisions of Planning Commission that you want to maintain approval authority over?
Personally, I was on the planning commission for the city for, 8 years before even coming here, and I never remember any of our decisions going to council.
Well, I'm specifically thinking of the historic board and the way that situation sort of played out, I guess. The historic board made their recommendation. The planning commission heard the appeal and made a decision. and then it was appealed to city council. So it's sort of like a last step administrative decision. Do you want to maintain that? We can maintain that and then just change the voting requirement. So it's a simple majority.
I think you would maintain that. What happened this summer was a unique circumstance that I won't understand for a while, because we have had, the planning commission has been appealed to council before. We had the sign down in the harbor, that was appealed, and that was even like less controversial. It was dealing with a flashing bulb, but it went to council upheld the planning commission recommendation. This summer, for some reason, it became an issue, I don't know why, but I would say just leave that like as it is. That would be my-
Can
I
I
think
ask a
people-
question? Oh, go on.
I would say, I think in the appeal process,
Yeah.
it's good to be able to come to you in the appeal
Council,
process,
yeah,
yes.
that's
But on your other appeals, so like when you did the sign appeal, that's a majority vote, right?
Did that actually come to council? I don't remember that coming to
When
council.
that came to council, yeah, Mr. Humphrey's sign, it was flashing bulbs, he went back
Well, I
and forth.
remember, I thought he, by his own, changed it. No?
No, he
Don't I
went-
remember
And then we
that?
also had the railing issue that was put up on a weekend,
Yeah,
and that was upheld by council as well.
that's right, thank you, that was behind the
Behind the
thing,
perk.
like I said.
Mhm.
This summer, I don't know what happened, but anyway.
Well, and so that's the distinction between the two sections, I guess. This section has that weird voting requirement that you need so many to affirm or modify and so many
Hold it
to
up, I'm
reverse.
reading it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's goofy.
Yeah, I would just
Yeah.
make it
Just a majority.
65.08, yeah.
Majority, agreed.
Yeah, that's-
Majority. So let me ask you this. I remember when the mural got painted on the side of the salon, the planning commission was not going to agree with it initially. No, they did agree with it, but initially, you don't remember this?
I don't remember, I think they were all.
I got a panicked phone call about it.
I think that was people trying to drum up some controversy with that, if I remember correctly, but no, when Megan came to that meeting, it was
Oh, that was a slam dunk.
that was a slam dunk, there was no issue with that, yeah.
Wasn't
on
there
your
some,
building.
originally some question about the historic designation and the
No, 'cause we
difference
didn't,
between?
we didn't have historic at that time down for Main Avenue. There was something about painting brick, and because it was the fabric attached to the brick,
Right.
it was a different process. So I think that was the only question, was could brick be painted, because there is a section in our zoning that says you can't paint brick. But like I said, this was a different, when she came to the planning commission, no, it was a slam dunk.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
Mrs. DeGiacomo, I'm just noticing here, it says, if a member is absent for 3 consecutive meetings or 5 during the, we have that on the planning commission, we probably should address that. We have some members who I think are absent more than they should be.
So I think it's, if they're unexcused absences.
Oh, is that what it
yeah.
says?
If I don't know if that.
Oh,
got-
without excuse.
Without
Yeah,
excuse,
you're
yeah, so
right, you're
if
right,
people
okay.
call in and say, hey, I can't be there if they're
Yeah,
sick,
and
they're excused, but if
All
they're
right,
unexcused,
yeah,
yes, then
I
we,
stand corrected. You're
and
right.
we have moved people along, in the past that have missed more than their share of meetings with that unexcused.
You're right,
So as far as the meetings provision, I'd like to propose that it be less than every month, but more than at the call of the chairperson.
Okay.
Just so that we're sure that they've reviewed whatever business they need to each quarter or every 6 months or whatever it is.
We put in there maybe just a minimum of 3 times a year.
Yeah, something like that.
Did it?
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Catherine,
Yes, ma'am.
can I ask you, so what about the shall adopt its own rules of procedure?
I wanted to let you know that that's something that we're going to be working on with the Planning Commission.
Okay, gotcha.
Similarly to Board of,
Supposed to be adopting, I guess, is the question.
they need to have their own rules of procedure, how they operate their meetings. those sorts of things.
Do any of our boards have that?
A lot of dotted i's and
Board of
crossing of the
Tax
t's.
Review, your local Board of Local Tax Review or whatever it does, because I drafted them for them.
I was gonna say, I don't think any of them have.
Tax incentive review council.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
So can I just ask one quick question, going back to the whole food truck discussion? So we collect income tax from that. Am I right? Am I wrong?
I think our legislation states you have to work 28 days consecutively in the city in order to collect income tax. There's a period of time before income tax can be collected. Now, they should be paying sales tax, but that goes to the county, not to the city.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if they're based out of the city, the corporate income tax may be coming to us. But there's something in the language of, you have to work so many days in the city in order to have to pay income tax. That'd be a
Okay.
question, if I can find that question out.
Yeah, can
Yep.
you let us know that?
Mhm.
I'm curious on that one.
Okay. Do you want to hit us with the city manager
Oh,
report?
sure. So we obviously have been deep in snow lately, so we've been trying to stay in touch with some of the businesses that have had damage, just feeling them out, seeing if there's anything we can do to help. A lot of them have been very responsive to what they need to do. Some of them have been working with the EMA too on damage reports and things like that, so we can compile all that information and send it down to the state. We are, as you know, we've been getting the budget ready for next year, and still having some good conversations with different folks, both in the harbor and on Main Avenue, for different planning going on into 2025. We're working on the Appalachian grant still. The land bank has received their request for proposals to assist with the facade program. I don't think they've picked anyone yet, but we're helping them review those. And then once a decision's made on that, it'll help us determine how we're gonna run the facade program as well. We have engaged GPD to start looking at some different things for our streetscape and sidewalk program. So eventually you're gonna get the ordinance to hire them to start doing all of the planning and construction documents for that. So we're moving pretty quickly as far as that goes. We want to have everything ready to go for spring, to possibly have that out on the street so that we can start construction this year on the sidewalks and sidewalks and streetscape program. And then we intend probably in January now to have a meeting with the business owners, the building owners, about the facade program, so we can get that kicked off.
Is it possible that I can peek at those plans ahead of time?
The plans for,
Sidewalk and street?
yeah, once they're developed, I mean, nothing's been developed. We
Okay.
went out and walked Main Avenue with GPD and just tried to come up with some ideas of how can we increase parking in some areas. Some of the dimples, can we move them back a little bit, and what that means to the structures in the roadway, different things like that. One of the things that we're gonna try to do is if we can add some of the lighting into it. One thing we are going to do, regardless if we can afford the lighting, is run conduit underneath the sidewalk so that if at the time when we can do lighting or can't afford it, the conduit will all be there so we can bury
Oh, that makes
all
sense.
those lines and everything. Yeah. Mhm.
It's needed.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
you know, we have two large pieces of this came up at the, where we were at Friday, the convention thing, and it came up at Lift Bridge thing. There's two big pieces of property in the harbor, and that are gonna be, you know, I think gonna get a lot of attention. The river,
Mhm.
and at one time, we thought about rezoning that, and then we didn't because the guy owned it, so I don't know when we wanna.
We have a very good relationship with the new owner. We've been trying to get on the calendars. Our calendars have just kind of mashed up lately, but we're going to meet with him. We've also had great communication with the owners of Sutherland Marine. They have some ideas for their property as well. And then there is a contingency that we have been meeting with to discuss the coal dock area.
Yeah, so I just wanna make sure we counsel, and I know you guys will, but we keep ahead of that. Now, when we talk coal dock property, how about all the railroad tracks along the river there by the bumboat, you know, all those railroad tracks? Is that
Yeah.
part of that property or?
No.
That's something
The only thing that we're interested in developing at this point is, or at least having a conversation about, because we don't own the property. Norfolk Southern owns the property, and this is where we have to be really sensitive, who's talking to who and who's making plans for that property. The west side of the river, basically, is the area we're interested in. So there's certainly wetlands out there. There's been some invasive species removal and native plantings done all back through there onto the Aqua property and then all the way around to Walnut Beach. So we've done a lot of restoration back there, which has brought back the natural habitat immensely back there. If you see some of the pictures, the before and after pictures that the Army Corps did, they're really incredible how that's grown up back there. There's some sensitivity because of the Aqua property and having the inlet there for all of the municipal drinking water within the county, basically. There's some homeland security issues there. So, and obviously with the wetlands and the delineation that in the work we've already done out there, we want to make sure that a lot of that property is protected, so that it can't be developed on as well. So my, high level thinking is a combination of commercial and residential, something out on those piers.
It's surprising how fast the wetlands comes back
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how fast that regenerates.
And when it's done right, when it's done by, companies with the Army Corps of
Oh, yeah.
really getting rid of the invasives,
Yeah.
and putting the native plantings out there, it really blossoms quickly. Yeah.
I just wondered.
It would be, and and that's the thing, we'd like to have a lot of these conversations. The big, and you guys recall this summer we had members from the US EPA who came into town. We had 3 districts or 4 districts here that came in, and really the impetus of that and the idea behind that was you gave us a lot of money to clean up this river. Look at the economic impact that's had on Bridge Street and the surrounding area. We now have another seemingly industrial site that needs cleanup. It's going to need a lot of cleanup, we think. We've done no environmentals on it, so we really don't know. But you've already given us this much. This is what we've done with it. We think this is a great candidate for the next phase. But again, we have to be extremely sensitive. We don't own the property. We certainly are not going to have the money ourselves to do this. So we're trying to get good partners involved with this. That'll be good stewards of the property. Yeah. But I mean, that's a 5-10 year
I was gonna say
commitment.
that's a long.
Yeah, that's a long commitment. Yep.
All right, so moving on, Parks and Recreation, I was at the meeting. What they've been working on are rules for the parks. They were tasked with that job. And the one thing that came up, which I guess is a part of the Ohio Revised Code, is that registered sex offenders are prohibited in public parks for safety concerns for the children.
Madam Chairwoman, is there a question?
Well, I guess maybe we need to make a motion, which I will make that motion, that we will request that ordinance be written.
Well, before we do that, I think there's a lot more conversation that needs to be had.
Okay.
Doing research, there are a lot of constitutional issues. These are called presence. ordinances or presence prohibitions. And in other states, they have pretty consistently been found to be unconstitutional after winding their way through federal litigation. So I'm going to need some time to research if I can even draft something that's going to stand up to constitutional scrutiny. The one thing that I think we are severely lacking is any kind of evidence. So I don't have any data or anything that suggests that this ordinance is actually going to protect children in a park. And absent that, I don't have anything to defend it other than we decided it was a good idea. So I would request that someone do some research and find some evidence that this ordinance is necessary to protect the public health and safety. Whether, I know we have, Kent State is a resource right in our own backyard. Whether there's anybody there who has any information, I don't know. But I need something that I can rely on if I'm going to draft an ordinance that says this is for public safety.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be like if the police came to you and said, hey, listen, we've had 5 calls this summer down Walnut Beach that there was,
Except
that would be something different as opposed to then just saying, how do you even monitor this? I guess.
Well, enforcement would be a very serious issue. I know Cecilia has raised that in her initial conversations about this. And I likewise have concerns. How would you know? You can't stop random people in the park without probable cause and ask for, are you a registered sex offender, or should you be registered?
Devil's advocate, though, if what you're saying is true, wouldn't ORC be moot?
The revised code puts specific limitations on where sex offenders can reside, and they did not elect to include public parks. They include parks that are associated with schools or daycares. They were very specific in what their residency prohibitions allowed. What we're contemplating here is a presence prohibition. So your mere presence in a park.
I'm not legally trained at all, so I'm going to say that immediately, so I apologize in advance. But how I read the law is when I looked it up, it said that they weren't allowed in public parks.
No, that's not what it says in Ohio. It is a residency requirement. Okay. They're not allowed to reside within, and it's as the crow flies, within a certain distance of these specific, what are commonly referred to as child safety zones. Schools,
So even with
daycares.
having playgrounds in our park, it's a moot point, huh?
It's not under the revised code. So that's what we would be doing additionally. And my concern is that we don't have anything to support it at this point.
How I read the law was like pretty plain that it was like they're not allowed in our parks outside of the fact that if there's a public emergency and some type of staging or some type of communications happening there, that's the only reason they'd be allowed in our parks. I really don't mean to sound ignorant.
If you wanna send me what it is you've read, and we can engage in that conversation. But I know that in my research, state statutes, at least. Now, I have put in an email. I know Parma has one that they enacted back in 2007. So I put in an email to their law department. I'm waiting for a response from them to see what their enforcement looks like as a practical matter. How do they enforce it? And if they've ever actually enforced it. Because sometimes, we have these ordinances that we just,
The Parks Board thought was that by having it on our rules board, it would be active in warranting or discouraging because it was posted there. That was the initial thought. There was some reported instances in Katy Park, so that's what was the impetus for us being interested in seeing where this was going. Because obviously, it is sickening to think about having child molesters in the park. You know what I mean? While your kids are there. And if we know that person and they're on the sex offender list, then that's a very easy way to verify that. And not to sound morbid, there
I don't disagree with your concerns. I'm not disagreeing. What I'm telling you is legally I have to create something that's going to withstand constitutional scrutiny. And there are a whole lot of legal ways that these presence ordinances have been overturned ex post facto. Are you penalizing someone for a crime that they committed prior? There is no crime being in a public park just because you're a sex offender. Is the area preempted by state statute? So has the state created a comprehensive general law that is intended to encompass all of the regulations for sex offenders? Do we even have home rule authority? Are we exceeding our home rule authority? These kinds of things I have to consider when I'm drafting something. It's not just as easy as draft something.
Devil's advocate, if what I perceive the rule to be is seemingly accurate, would that be something that our police could enforce without having anything on the books for us officially? In theory. I'm not saying you're validating what I'm saying is true. I'm saying that if I'm saying what I'm saying is true.
I don't believe that a police officer can randomly stop people in a public park and ask for papers. The registration requirement is a residency registration. You have to be registered with the sheriff's department. You have to update that registration if you move. Excuse me.
That's where the issue lies.
And just being in a public place isn't sufficient to trip a probable cause. Those individuals are still entitled to due process.
Okay, I apologize. That makes sense.
No, that's just, so I need a lot more time to research. I can't just, say go ahead and pass what Parma has
Right.
blindly. The fact that it hasn't been challenged doesn't necessarily mean that it would withstand scrutiny if it were challenged. And what I'm reading from the other cases, Indiana, Illinois, Connecticut, there was one in Texas, then you start dealing with the big entities like the ACLU, and it becomes much more than it needs to.
I appreciate all the work you're doing on this.
Sure.
Okay. So that is to be continued, that discussion. You're going to do more research and then we'll...
And like I said, do you have my email? You can email me.
Is it on the city's website?
It should be,
Yeah, no, trust me, I will follow up.
okay.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I want to know so I can educate myself, genuinely.
Okay.
Catherine?
Yeah.
I don't know, just what happens when you Google registered sex offenders, ORC 2950, no registered sex offender shall enter or remain upon any park facilities except to attend meetings of public bodies.
I'm sorry, 29 what?
2950?
Is there a dot something?
Ohio revised
No.
666.19.
Ohio Revised Code doesn't.
Yeah, I'm seeing 666.19.
666.19, that's the Parma ordinance.
Park
So what did you say,
facilities.
2950 what?
It just said Ohio
And the
ORC
number.
chapter 2950.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was, can they?
No, so, yeah, this is somebody's.
That's the one in Parma.
That is the Parma ordinance that references.
666,
the-
yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
2950
Okay,
is the
gotcha.
chapter
Goes to
on
there,
sex
underneath there.
offenders. Right.
Gotcha.
So, and I mean, you can copy and paste what Parma has. I'd like to have more information before I recommend that that's a good idea.
There's several municipalities that have different things like that. Brook Park has something. Brook Park even went a little bit further in just the registry, and within Brook Park, it's like,
I'm not sure, did Brook Park actually get passed? Because what I understood was that it was challenged at a meeting and then it was sent to committee. And I was unable to find anything that came out of committee.
this goes back to, like, the article I found was like 2018 where it passed. But it wasn't for their,
Right, but if you read
it
down, was for the living, where the state has a certain requirement. it was residency.
They did it for residency, not, yeah. So there's different things with that when it came to parks.
And there is, lo and behold, there's a whole organization devoted to constitutional sex offender legislation, and I spent some time, scrolling through, and that's how I discovered the cases from the states that I could find closest to us. I couldn't find anything for Pennsylvania. I still have more looking to do, but it's possible. I'm not comfortable right now.
Basically, if someone's resourceful enough, they've got a good shot at beating what we could try to do.
Well, they certainly have big entities that are willing to fight their fights for them.
Gotcha.
What a hell of a thing to fight for.
Yeah.
So did this, back on for the Parks Board, so you guys are trying to get your rules together, so you guys were just having conversation and looking at like health and safety?
Correct.
Kind of a thing? Okay, I just wondered.
And I don't remember, to address Mr. Roskovic's point, I don't remember one of the states, they enacted one of the cities enacted an ordinance based off of, they only had 2 police calls to a park for a situation. And ultimately their state Supreme Court said, nope, that's not enough.
Yeah, that's,
So-
because I don't,
Gotcha.
we could check with the police department, I don't imagine it's been an issue.
One of the things I noted, excuse me, in the defense of the registered sex offenders cases, in those cases, their big evidentiary piece, and why I need evidence, is that if we were to look at sex offender cases within the city of Ashtabula, or even incidents with the police, they're going to look at, family members are far more inclined or more likely to be offenders than the random person at the public park. So the numbers don't bear out what, we're saying. And I understand park rules, but within a municipality, park rules are codified. So they become ordinances, so they're legislative, so they're laws, and then you bring in the whole court system, so.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Last year, we had a group that wanted to keep people out of a park. And, so I think we have to be, like you say, how can you defend something like this? But at the same time, I just think we need to follow the law, and that's probably why the law is written the way it is,
Well, there was one case, and they even addressed that the legislature hadn't put parks in their statute. And the court said, well, maybe they intend to do it in the future, but then there's years and years and years since and nothing's happened, so. But as I always fall back on, home rule authority is a beautiful thing, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you. Thank you for all that time that you've put into researching that. Moving on, is there any unfinished business? No? New business. Do you want to do that, Jody?
Well, the cleanup was going to be, we didn't realize, would have been the day before Easter. So, when we talked to Public Works, because they go around, pick up the trash and all that kind of stuff, it just is, and we're not sure how many volunteers we would get. So Mrs. DiGiacomo and I, between looking at everybody's schedules, we opted for, it's a Saturday, May 17th. So unless, we don't know, Mr. Manager, is there any city conflict on that day, or?
I don't know what we're doing tomorrow, so.
Yeah, we're still in 2024.
Right.
And, yeah,
To get through the budget.
but that's what we were thinking of, because there's just, yeah,
Yeah, I think that'll be fine.
okay.
So the good news is May 17th should be a nice, beautiful day. The trouble with doing it later, I think you'll get more volunteers, but is that foliage has grown up, so sometimes that hides trash. So we can
But
only,
we'll find it.
maybe, unless there's prickers.
We'll find it.
So we're looking at May 17th from 8:30 to 11:30. All right. Our next meeting is February 5th. Does anyone have any comments before I end?
Were we doing a January change?
No.
No, we're not. Okay, thank you.
Meeting ended.
3:13.